We had been together for years, long enough for our routines to settle into quiet, predictable patterns. We loved each other, and that love felt real, but somewhere along the way the spark that used to pull us toward each other turned into something gentler, almost like friendship with familiar touches. We didn't fight. We didn't accuse. We just drifted, a slow slide that neither of us acknowledged out loud. Our nights were spent on separate screens, our conversations shorter, and intimacy felt rehearsed, like we were following steps from memory instead of desire. It started with curiosity, not dissatisfaction. I was scrolling online late one night and found people talking about non-traditional relationships, about couples exploring new experiences together to reconnect. I didn't bring it up immediately, but the seed stayed. Eventually, one evening, I mentioned it casually, expecting discomfort, maybe even anger, but instead there was a pause, then a quiet, thoughtful, maybe that's something we could talk about. It surprised both of us. We researched, not recklessly, but slowly, articles, forums, experiences shared by couples who claimed it brought them closer. The idea didn't feel like cheating. It felt like change, like maybe we were trying to save something before it faded entirely. We made rules, carefully and with seriousness. Stay close, check in often, leave the moment either of us felt overwhelmed. No secrets. No emotional attachments. We told each other that we came first. That this was meant to remind us of us. When the night finally arrived, we held hands tightly as we walked up to the building, both nervous and pretending not to be. The atmosphere inside was quieter than I imagined, soft music, dim lighting, people speaking gently. It wasn't wild. It wasn't reckless. But the moment we stepped inside, I felt something shift, like the air between us had changed, and neither of us knew what we were stepping into, only that we had already crossed the threshold together. We walked through the place slowly, trying to stay close, trying to move together. The atmosphere wasn't chaotic. It was calm, almost warm. People smiled politely, introduced themselves, asked questions before making any moves. Consent was constant, and everything felt strangely respectful. I kept watching her, the way she carried herself, the way others noticed her. I realized how beautiful she looked under softer light, how long it had been since I really paused and saw her instead of just looking. Someone approached us, friendly, relaxed, and started a light conversation. Compliments were exchanged, not crude, not suggestive, just appreciative. She smiled back, a real smile, one I hadn't seen in months. It didn't hurt at first. In fact, for a moment, I felt proud. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't fading beside me. She was glowing, and I got to be the one standing with her. We had imagined this would be the point where we felt closer, where shared curiosity would become shared intimacy again. When small touches began, they were slow, consistently checked, offered rather than assumed. We followed the rules we agreed on and stayed near each other. I kept looking at her face, and she kept meeting my eyes, and I thought we were fine. I thought this was working. But then, something shifted. It wasn't physical. It was the way she laughed at something someone said, soft, warm, effortless. A laugh shaped by attention, not habit. And the look she gave back held a spark I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. It wasn't lust. It was connection. Something living and awake. I stood beside her, but for the first time, I felt like I was watching from outside rather than being part of the moment. I didn't say anything. I just felt the difference. I noticed myself becoming more aware of every small detail. The way her hand rested on her leg, the angle of her shoulders leaning just slightly toward someone else, the softness in her expression. It wasn't dramatic or obvious. It was quiet, but it was enough. I tried to join the conversation, to pull her attention back gently, but something about her focus had shifted. She was still beside me, still touching me, still following the rules, but emotionally, she felt a few steps away. I didn't feel anger. That was the strange part. It was more like realization. A slow understanding that this wasn't about the environment or the experience. It was about something we had lost long before we walked through those doors. For a moment, I excused myself, needing air more than space. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just stood still, letting the truth settle. We had come here hoping to revive something, but instead, we uncovered the extent of what had faded. When she came to find me, she looked worried, like she already knew what I had realized. We stood close, not touching. I asked if she was okay, and she said yes, but her voice was unsure. I asked if something had happened, and she hesitated before saying, "I didn't expect to feel anything." That sentence was small, quiet, honest, and it carried weight. There was no blame exchanged. No accusations. Just silence, heavy and full. We agreed to leave. The car ride home was quiet, not tense, just filled with everything we weren't ready to say. We didn't fight. We didn't discuss it. We sat side by side, close enough to touch, but feeling further apart than we ever had. The realization was already there, unspoken and undeniable. The days after were quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. We moved around each other carefully, like two people in a room full of glass. There wasn't anger, just a heaviness that made everything slower. We both knew something had changed, even if we didn't know how to talk about it yet. When we finally sat down, it wasn't dramatic. No raised voices, no accusations. Just honesty. She said she hadn't felt desired in a long time. Not unwanted, just unseen. She said that the attention reminded her of who she used to be, before routines and familiarity dulled the edges of everything. I told her the truth, too. That I had felt her slipping away long before that night, but I pretended not to notice, because pretending felt easier than admitting we were losing something. I told her I didn't care about the physical part. What hurt was watching her look at someone else the way she used to look at me. The part of us that was ours alone had shifted, even if only for a moment. And once something shifts like that, you can't pretend it didn't happen. We talked about what comes next. Whether we could rebuild, whether we even wanted to. Not out of obligation, but out of choice. We didn't end things, but we didn't pretend everything was fine either. We agreed to try differently, to be intentional, to actually show up. But we also acknowledged that trying doesn't guarantee anything. The experience didn't destroy us. It revealed us. It made clear what had been fading for a long time. There isn't a neat conclusion. We're still figuring it out. Some days we feel close again. Some days we don't. But at least now, we're being honest about where we stand, even when the truth is uncomfortable.